This video is dedicated to the 6 different Hexaorb players in my life, the 3 most notables being Ama, Chisato Melody, as well as Casey Samuel. Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Mr. here. Today I am back to cover Hexaorb again in DivineZ. Now, this is one of my last few DivineZ recap videos that I'm doing in this period of time before DZ BTO1, the Fated War, officially comes out. And I know what you may be saying, why am I doing Hexaorb Sorceress yet again? One, I still believe this deck is top tier. I still believe this deck is freaking insane, and this deck is a sleeper for the last 4 years now. But I think the other reason why is because a lot of people have asked me, is Hexaorb Sorceress a winner or loser in DivineZ? And that's because of the new 54. Again, if you're not familiar with all the rule changes in DivineZ, please check the link in the description. I have a video explaining all of the DivineZ changes. Now, the reason why this is very important is because Hexaorb is a deck that likes triggers. It's Oracle Think Tank, right? It's Oracle Think Tank for children. So you want to sack your way all the way to high hell. But the other thing is that because you have more cards in the deck, you're less likely to pull your triggers. Or at least that's what would be the case. Today I'm here to present to you a version of Hexaorb that's unorthodox. It's a version of Hexaorb that you likely will never see again in your life, and likely you will never even see an event, even though that's kind of the situation with every Hexaorb list at this point. The thing is that I'm building this Hexaorb mainly out of Keter generics this time. I know Hexaorb Sorceress is a very strong little Ink archetype engine that's mainly based on set 6, which is DBTO6, but the thing is that you can actually splash in a lot of other Keter generics to make an insane deck, and that's why today I'm going to show you what is likely the most expensive version of Hexaorb. And the whole point is to answer the question, is Hexaorb good or bad in DivineZ? So we're going to break it down. This will have a lot more explanations. If you want to see a more Hexaorb style Hexaorb, please check the link in the description for my DBT12 Hexaorb deck profile. But I will still try my best to explain all the cards in this deck so that it still makes sense. And while this deck is still very peculiar in my opinion, and I'm still really coming to terms with it, I do like this deck enough that I'm willing to try it. But likely in the future, I'm more likely to go back to a more traditional version of this deck. But the right deck is still exactly the same. It is still the good old Hexaorb right deck that I've been talking about for the last, 4 years at this point. We also have energy in this, the energy crest, but because I don't have the physical energy crest right now, it's coming in a few days. I can't show it to you. Again, if you want to learn more about energy, please check the link in the description. I go very in-depth about energy, so I won't be talking about it here anymore. Our starter is still going to be this wonderful, cute little sorceress, and our grade 1 is still going to be tier square, our grade 2 is still going to be pentaglyph, and our grade 3 will be back to the original Hexaorb. Now, I'm really debating if I want to go through these skills again. Okay, I'll go through them very briefly. When you roll upon by the grade 2, you count +1, draw a card. When rolled upon by grade 3 Hexaorb, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck and rearrange them in any order. Any rearguard skill you see here, completely irrelevant. At least for this version. Hexaorb Sorceress, we are literally back to the original Hexaorb Sorceress. You may have forgotten what this card does, but I'll go through it quickly. Any triggers that you flip, they also give an additional, you can also give an additional 10,000 power to one of your rearguards. So basically, if let's say I flip if I flip a heal trigger, I can now choose another unit and it gains 10,000 power. Or I can choose the same unit. So I give 10,000 power to a unit with the trigger effect, and then Hexaorb will allow me to give 10,000 to another unit. If it's in France, I just apply France, the 10k to all 3 units in my front row, but then I can give an additional 10,000 power to another unit, either in the front or back row, it doesn't matter. So Hexaorb, the original, is still one of your best and fastest ways to get a large amount of power. The second skill does not matter in this deck, because we will never aim to Persona Ride on this version of Hexaorb. But if you happen to, well, I must just still tell you, if your Persona wrote this turn, card +1, soul +1, from your hand, choose a critical or front from among them, and then you can put it to the top of your deck. And then this unit also gets drive +1. So it's a net 0, but you hard set one of your critical or front triggers to the top of this deck. In other words, you are guaranteed to pull at least one trigger. while this skill is still not bad, we do have a pocket version of it in the form of Delta Append Sorceress. So you don't really need to use this Vanguard, which is why, as you will see later on in the deck, we have changed. And what do I mean by we have changed? Well, for our grade 3s, we play 4 copies of Sargeras. He's back again from my previous deck profile, which was on Ezel, which you can check in the channel. I mean, it is still there, it has not moved anywhere. And the rest of our grade 3s are really quite predictable from here on out. We play 1 copy of Hexaorb for the right deck. We play 4 copies of Hexaorb Aquamarine, who is the new one. And then we play our copy of Regalis Piece. The Regalis Piece is obviously because you want Persona Rite, but Hexaorb is a deck is very Persona Rite heavy, so that's about that. Our 1 copy of Hexaorb, this was from the right deck. I don't need to discuss it any further. Hexaorb Aquamarine is the newer version of Hexaorb, and it's not exactly a direct upgrade, but it has a lot more flexibility and a lot more different win cons added to the deck. Again, I've covered Hexaorb Aquamarine at least 2 different videos on the span of last year, but I'm willing to go through it again just so we're all clear. On the Vanguard circle, this unit is also counted as Hexaorb Sorceress, the original. If you Persona Rite this turn, any of your trigger effects that you pull will gain an additional 10,000 power, and this unit gets Drive +1. What does this mean? If you Persona Rite this turn, Hexaorb Aquamarine immediately just gets triple drive. It's a Drive +1, and any trigger you pull will give 20,000 power instead of 10,000 power. This is similar to our previous trigger, but the downside is that it's locked to the same card. So if I pull a heal trigger, for example, I can only give 1 unit 20,000 power, unlike the original Hexaorb, who can split the power to 10 and 10. The fun is that your front triggers now give 20,000 power to all instead of 10,000 power. So as you can tell, Hexaorb Aquamarine is where more of the kill power sits at, because of a third skill, which is that whenever you pull a trigger, Soul Blast 1, choose one of your rear guards. And standard, it is that insane. Any trigger you pull, Soul Blast 1, stand, Soul Blast 1, stand, Soul Blast 1, stand. It is a custom card built for this deck. And Hexaorb Aquamarine, when you hit turn 4, which is the Persona Rite for this deck, you can just instantly, at your own will, just get 5 attacks, because you can stack the deck, right? And you may be wondering, well, who exactly can stack the deck? Sargeras. And Sargeras is a very expensive card, as I mentioned in my Ezel deck profile. If you cannot afford Sargeras for Hexaorb specifically, I strongly recommend you to buy Effulgent Wizard instead. She is literally a grade 2 version of Sargeras, but you know, she's for Hexaorb, so she's a bit faster. But Sargeras is still a complete demon, and I will go through his skills again if you did not watch my Ezel deck profile. Whenever your opponent drive or damage checks a trigger, this unit gains 10,000 power and 10,000 shield. As I mentioned in my DivineZ video, which the link is in the description, because the deck is being bloated with 4 extra cards, your shield ratio generally goes downwards. But because Sargeras is a 10,000 shield grade 3, you know, that doesn't really matter. And he gets 10,000 power, so it's a nice beater to help fight off defensives. The second skill is that when he attacks, you can look at the top card of your deck and either soul charge it or leave it at the top, which basically is a scry 1. You either get to give your best self back 1 soul for, sorry, wrong Hexaorb. You either get to give yourself 1 soul back for your Aquamarine, or you can, you know, just leave it on top of the deck, which is nice as a scry. Then you can Counter Blast 1 and use its effects. If your opponent's Vanguard is 14,000 power or higher, you can copy your opponent's Vanguard's power, which basically means if they're Majesty or Blaster, you get all of their 15,000 power. But if they are 23,000 Vanguard, because of, for example, defensive, you can gain an additional 23,000 power. Not to mention, because it's lightly by defensive, Sargeras' ability will kick off from the first text, and he will gain an additional 10,000 power. So if your opponent pulls a defensive and goes up to 23,000 power, your Sargeras will attack them for 23 plus 23, that's 46,000 power. It's very insane. And because Hexaorb is all about restanding your rear guards, you can understand why Sargeras is way stronger in this deck than Blonezl. So it's kind of nice that I actually did these videos in kind of a weird chronological order, so I can really explain and break down more of these intricacies. But as I mentioned in my Ezel deck profile, if you remembered, there's one more line of skill. You can remove an over trigger from your drop zone to choose one of your rare guards and it gains 15,000 power. Suggest is just power, 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 written into a single card. It can help contribute to your win con by scrying, it can help contribute to win con by soul charging, and Suggest is a hugely fat beatstick that's just walking to your opponent, and your opponent is virtually helpless. It cannot be stopped. And Hexaorb will keep restanding Suggest. So, you know, good luck. Good luck, everybody. Moving on to the rest of our deck, our grade 2s is a very wide pool, so I ask you to sincerely bear with me because, you know, I will have to take my time to explain. But the rest of this deck is going to be pretty quick. We still play Pentagleam in the right deck. We play 4 copies of Spiral QT Angel. We play 4 copies of this one. We play 3 copies of Trailing Angel. Then we play 2 copies of Pentagleams or Delta Pen Sorceress. We play 3 copies of Quadra Sorceress. And then we play 3 copies of Esu. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. But we will have to break through all of them one by one because there's just way too many. I'll start with the more orthodox options and then I'll go through the less orthodox options in an order. Pentagleam is for a right deck, so I think we all pretty much are acquainted with her by now. Quadracast is one of the strongest grade 2s that Hexaorb can put out on turn 2, and this is why you should hard mulligan for her. When placed on a rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Sorceress in its name, you know, which is why we obviously play a Sorceress right line, it's for a reason. You can look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose one from among them, leave them on top of the deck, leave them on top of the deck in any order, and then you soul charge one. So essentially, you look at the top 2, you can choose which you soul charge, and then which you leave on top. So you can already get a trigger fix as early as turn 2. It's insane. But we only play 3 off because we want to play other options in these decks. But I'm going to be honest, likely when I stop playing this version of Hexaorb, I will go back to 4. This card is just that good. Moving on to our, again, more other orthodox options. Well, we obviously play 2 copies of Delta Pen. I'm sorry, I said obviously, but it may not be clear. But Delta Pen is basically a pocket version of the original Hexaorb Sorceress. And she's pretty good. When placed on the hand, if you have a Vanguard with Sorceress in its name that is grade 3 or greater, you can counterblast 1. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose one from among them, add it to your hand. Put the other one on the top or bottom of your deck. Then, if you want, you can choose a critical or front trigger from your hand and move it back to the deck. So, Delta Pen is basically a +1, and it can also fix a crit or front on top of the deck, which is really, really good. It's really just normal Hexaorb, but it's on a grade 2 body, which is why, like I said again, we play Hexaorb this version in the right deck, and then we can safely play Aquamarine in the main deck. It all makes sense now that you look at it. If we still wish to talk about more orthodox options, then of course we must talk about the one card that's always fall off in Hexaorb. This card is from DBT06, and I'll be honest with you, if she was never printed in DBT06 or if she was just never printed at all, chances are I would never continue to support Hexaorb because this card hard empowers Hexaorb to become a complete meta threat. This card is still completely viable. It's completely super strong, and Octary Sorceress is someone whose name I dare not even say on camera because she's just that good. When placed on a Vanguard circle, if you're grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Sorceress in its name, counterblast 1. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 cards from among them, you can put them into your hand. Put the rest on top of the deck in any order. If you add the top 2 cards to your hand, you have to choose a card from your hand and put it to the bottom of your deck. So it is a top 2 scry, you can +2 and then -1, or you could just rearrange and then just +1. It is the peak form of filtering. This is the highest and strongest card that Hexaorb has to offer. This is your 4 off. If you don't play 4 copies of Octary Sorceress in Hexaorb, you really should not be playing anymore. And especially in the new DivineZ format, this is such a good card to think through the deck. You would always opt for it because your deck is fatter. During the battle, this unit attack the Vanguard. If your Persona rolled this turn, this unit can get 5,000 power, and this skill can stack, you know, so pretty nice because it is an auto skill. I actually managed to search out the English version. There is an issue with it because, I'm just going to show you right here. It says that as a continuous, which is wrong, okay? It's actually an auto skill. This is an errata that they still have not corrected on their original deck log. So, Bushiroad English, I know we don't talk very often, but you may want to start doing your homework. And now for the more controversial options, we'll start off with Drilling Angel. I know everyone will start beating their screens and screaming, "Amaz, you son of a bitch!" But let me explain. Drilling Angel, when this unit is placed on the rearguard circle, you can choose a card from your drop zone and move it into your soul. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and if there is one of the same name cards as one that you actually put into your soul, you can recall it. Yes, this card is not very good in most scatter decks today, and if you're not Phantom Blast or Overlord, or hopefully Platinum as well, you will not really want to play this card. But why am I playing in Hexaorb? Is because, as I mentioned before, Hexaorb is a deck with a lot of top deck manipulation. Using this correctly not only gives you back the soul which you can also get back from Conjure Cast and from Suggest, but a third source of soul is not gonna harm anybody, and to top it all off, you could potentially get a superior call for free. So that's why I still think Drilling Angel is a potential card to play in Hexaorb, but Hexaorb also has a lot of strong cards, so you actually may not even have space for this guy anymore. So really, the choice is on you whether you want to play it or not. Judging from the way the internet reacts to this card, most of you will not, but I am going to play fair, and I'm just going to present him to you so you can see. On the top of Angels, we have Spiral Cutie. Spiral Cutie is a card that, frankly, it is an on and off. It's a card that will do absolute wonders for Hexaorb, but at the same time, if you don't play her in Hexaorb, frankly, it's not that bad. You'd rather play here in Graham Graves or God knows what. When discarded from the hand during the right phase, you can Soul Blast 1 and move this to the bottom of your deck and draw a card. Alright, it's a cycle card. This is a true cycle card. When placed on the rearguard circle, we Persona right this turn, Count Blast 1 to the top 2 cards of your deck. You can then move 1 into your hand and then put 1 at the top bottom of your deck. Again, this is top deck manipulation. Again, this is the CP1+1. It's wonderful. And now for the one option that will make you go, "No bro, you've cooked too far," and that is this girl. This card is Yearnful Magic Esunono from DBTO4, and I actually did cover her in DBTO4, but she silently left this deck because right after her was the entire set 6 wave, and if you've paid attention to Hexaorb, they're all bloody insane. So why am I going back to playing a Hexaorb pack filler that most people don't even remember? Frankly, I'm still on the fence with this one, but I do think that she does fulfill a purpose that is worth mentioning. When this unit attacks, if your Vanguard is Hexaorb Sorceress or Pentagleam Sorceress, which basically means you the grade 2 or grade 3 Sorceress, you can discard a card from your hand, look at the top 2 cards from the top of your deck, choose 2 cards from among them, and you can put them on top of the deck in any order. You can also move any ones that you want to the bottom of your deck in any order. This unit gains 10,000 power until the end of the turn. The thing about Hexaorb is that a lot of our cards don't gain power anymore. That may be because I'm too stubborn to play stuff like Effulgent Wizard, but realistically speaking, they don't really get that much power. Esunono is a 20k attacker on potentially turn 2 and 3, which is a virtual nightmare for most decks. Not to mention, this card does help you rearrange the top 2 cards of your deck, or even bot deck both of them if they're unfavorable. The downside is that this card is a -1. So this is a card I recommend you to try, but don't take this as a must play. I'm so far quite on the fence with this, because on the times where I -1 and I managed to actually kill people with the rearranged cards, it's really nice. But to be fair, there are some times where this card just completely falls flat on its face. So that's why some people may say, "Oh no," and yeah, I actually do agree if this card does not work for some people. Again, the rest of Hexaorb has such a wonderful grade 2 pool, so before I leave this segment, let me just repeat, a lot of the cards that Hexaorb has open right now are all completely playable. If you need help, if you need advice on what cards count as playable, you can check my previous Hexaorb deck profiles, they should give you a hint. And to our grade 1s, we still play a copy of Tier Square Sorceress in the right deck. This deck list honestly is going long enough, and I would like to end it as soon as possible, but we still have more greatly controversial options in the form of Solda Sakat, and then we play 4 copies of Selgaon, and then we also play 4 Perfect Guards. For Perfect Guards is because we want to stay alive. I don't need to repeat myself. We already play Tier Squares for the right deck. Solda Sakat. The only skill you need to know is that when a unit is placed in the same column as this, counterblast 1 and draw a card. It's a once per turn skill. It is a CD1+1. It is a grade 1 8k. That's really about it. Would I still continue to play Solar Succumb in the future? Maybe, maybe not. But Solar Succumb allows me to put my deck on a literal accelerator, because if I just pace my counterblast well enough, I can draw, and kill my opponent with relatively nice grade 2 gaming. Selgaon is a card from Monthly Bushiroad, which will be very expensive for all of you Luard players, so have fun in hell. But why am I playing this in Hexaorb? Hexaorb frankly does not need this card. It is nice to have, but you do not need it. Why? I'll explain now. When this unit boosts, if you have more regards than your opponent, or if you play an order this turn, you can give this unit 5,000 power. At the end of the battle, you retire this unit, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose one to add to your hand, and move the other to the top. No, move the other to the bottom of the deck. Selgaon is just a top deck filter. It is a net 0, it's a plus 5k booster. It's basically Painkiller but for free. Why this card is good is because on turn 1 it's a 13k booster, which is very much insane. But the thing is that, you know, the conditions to hit it are kind of tough. You need a board bigger than your opponent, which you don't really always have with Hexaorb. But you can also just choose to play an order this turn, which is also quite hard with Hexaorb. So I'm still at a 50-50 with Selgaon as well, but so far I find it pretty useful, especially with Drilling Angel. Why is that? 1. Drilling Angel can move a card from a drop zone to the soul and then look at the top train superior call one. Because of the top deck manipulation, you can literally call a lot of things, including recycling a Selgaon. 2. Drilling Angel is one of the few cards in this deck that shuffles, which I know you're wondering, why do I care about this? Well, that's because a lot of the time when we are scrying and cycling to our deck, we mainly just put cards at the top or the bottom. We don't really get a shuffle. And since I've reached the last card of the main deck per se, I might as well just tell you right now, this is why cards like Drilling Angel are still important, because it helps you shuffle and reset your deck. There are some times where you get 2 triggers on top of the deck, you're forced to put both at the bottom, and they just never come out again. So Drilling Angel does help you to shuffle, but again, this is only because I'm playing this certain variant of Hexaorb. If you don't like it, please go back to a more traditional version, it will help you. And last but not least, our grade zeros. We still play this wonderful starter. And we also play Eidos Faro. Eidos Faro is from the, he's from Festival Booster 2023, but he's also reprinted in DivineZ BT01, The Fated War. So if you can't afford him or Val not, I recommend you to wait for DivineZ BT01. We play 4 normal heals, and we make just a Sorceress one. We play 3 effect fronts, because this deck does make use of fronts, and of course crits, because this deck can abuse crits to high health. And yes, that will wrap up my Hexaorb deck profile for DivineZ, including Hexaorb Aquamarine. This deck is by far the most experimental version of the deck I've put out. And if I'm very honest, I don't know if my next deck profile on Hexaorb will be anything like it. I don't even think any of my future Hexaorb deck profiles will look like this list in the future. The meta may change well enough that I don't play these cards anymore, and I may move on to different cards or go back to the Hexaorb pool. But when has this ever stopped us? Every Hexaorb video I've put out has been controversial, has been experimental. In set 1, I created Godhand Hexaorb, which basically just focused on front spam. We tried again set 4, we've tried different versions of Hexaorb, we've done so many things with this boss. And because of the nature of D-series deck building, as well as Hexaorb having an insane card pool from set 1, unlike Eugene, there is really no reason to ever stop playing or even testing Hexaorb. This deck is definitely not affordable, because as you can see, I play a lot of generic Keter Ultra staples that will make you go, wait, what? And that's why if you can't afford this list, I think it's really fine. But I liked it enough that I wanted to put out a presentation on it, because I had a lot of fun playing a lot of these random cards that you don't expect from a Keter Sanctuary deck, yet alone a Hexaorb deck. But you know what? This may be one of the last few DivineZ recap videos I do before we move on to DivineZ BT01, The Fated War. So if you like this video, if you like any of my DivineZ videos so far, let me know in the comments. It means a lot to me if you guys actually enjoy it, because I'm doing a lot of these videos and whatnot for myself to learn, as well as for a few people out there to learn as well. And I really like it if you are one of those people as well to learn. You know, some people say, oh, your videos are meant to attack people. That's not really true. I don't really sit down and say, yes, today I will fight someone online. If you want to do that, there's RMS24. You can get him instead. I heard he's pretty available. But for me, I'm a working adult. I really don't have time to sit here and say, yes, my deck profiles are meant to insult people. They're not. I'm trying to help people test and see options that they normally wouldn't have, or even shed light on decks that people wouldn't have thought of. You know, a lot of the current V series toppers, I covered them way before they were popular, and people just copy the list and say, oh yeah, this is good. But you know, no one really remembers where they came from. I'm not saying I'm like the world's greatest player. I'm not saying I'm the world's best content creator, but you know, it would help if I knew that you guys did like my content. And if you didn't like it as well, you should also let me know so I can improve as a person and as a content creator. Because how many content creators really are there in Vanguard? You know, we don't have a monthly beat up with, you know, NBT and God knows what. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. If you want to see more V videos, or if you like to see V with the new promos, let me know as well, because I may or may not do them. I may want to focus more, especially with, you know, the new Dragon Empire stuff looks really, really fun, and I'm going to spend most of my time on that. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.